being curious about things, because that means you're always going to be learning. You're not going to stay stagnant. I think a personality trait you really do need to have to be an entrepreneur is that you can motivate yourself. You're self-motivated, because nobody is going to tell you exactly what to do and give you sort of a play-by-play of how to do your entire day.
Main Street businesses are struggling as they face challenges nothing like we've seen before. You're listening to the Behind Main Street podcast. Let's learn from real-world Main Street entrepreneurs, pick their brains, and learn their secrets to navigate, persevere, and overcome all the modern obstacles they face every day. Get ready to peek behind the stories, the struggles, and strategies of today's Main Street entrepreneurs. Welcome to the Behind Main Street podcast. Here's your host, Chris J. Cardona.
Great day, everyone. Welcome to the show. Whether it's your first time listening or are an avid follower, thank you so much for joining us. Show notes can be found at www.behindmainstreet.com. But before we get started, I would like to thank the sponsor for this episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thinkin' Local, a fundraising and giving-based marketing platform whose mission is to connect local Main Street businesses who care about making an impact in the local community with schools and nonprofits who believe in supporting their local businesses. Find out more by visiting local.com.
For today's episode, I'm honored and excited to interview Denise Cannon, the other half and co-founder of VikingSpawn Gaming and Computer Repair, serving the Inland Empire region of Southern California, which she started with her husband, Stefan, who is a real Viking from Sweden. On top of that, she is also a branding expert and a certified experience coach who has worked with Fortune executives, startups, and entrepreneurs alike to help them take their vision and transform them into reality. Denise, are you ready to take us behind the curtains and dig into your story?
Let's go.
Awesome. Well, I've given our listeners a little bit of a sneak peek of who you are. Why don't you tell them a little bit more about yourself and what it is that you do?
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So I started sort of my career thinking I wanted to be a journalist. I really was interested in answering or asking questions that really got people to think. And I found that when I was on camera, or actually I worked in radio too, on camera, on radio, I had more fun producing the stories, doing the research, doing sort of the background than necessarily being the front person. And so I started a career as being a producer of radio shows and then some talk shows. And then I moved into corporate events, and I was producing large scale corporate events. For most of my career, I've worked in agencies, and then I've worked on the brand side. Why we're here today is because I'm also a small business owner. My husband and I started VikingSpawn Repair. He actually is the tech wizard to repair computers. He builds computers, does gaming. But what I bring to his sort of other half is the brand, the marketing, the storytelling. And as I sort of think of myself, I think of myself as an experience coach. And that really means I'm trying to help businesses, people, entrepreneurs, think about how they can deliver an experience to their customers, to their employees, to the press, whoever their really important audience is.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Maybe you can tell me or tell us something interesting that your family and friends would say about you.
So my family and friends would say that I was probably an adult when I was about 10. And in fact, I was looking at some old posts on Facebook from our junior high school, and everybody was like in hoodies and t-shirts, and I had a blazer on. I was sort of the little adult organizing. I was that person that was organizing what all of our friends would do. When it came to my family, I was the person that sort of was the glue in the family and organizing. So I was a little leader, if you want to say that.
Wow. I can totally imagine you. I mean, knowing you in person and stuff like that, like I could totally see you being that person. I'm imagining in my school days, that person that there's always someone like you in any space, in any workplace, in the classroom and things like that. I could totally picture who you are when you were a kid.
Yep, exactly. I was the kid in the front row. I was also the kid that if we had a birthday party, I wanted to be in charge of organizing the entire flow of the birthday party. Like, when are we going to do a raffle? And when are we going to have a piñata? And when is the food going to be served? I was that kid.
Absolutely. Well, maybe, talking about that, how would you describe your mission in life?
So I think that my mission in life is about experience. And to be honest, the last several years have made that really difficult because I think we've all seen, staying at home as much as we've had, the major experience we've all had is through a screen and through technology and with the people that live in our houses. But my mission in life personally is to better think of life as a journey and the experiences we have all along that journey, as opposed to what the destination is. And I really do approach that from business as well, is if you think about it, we remember moments, we remember, like, our brains store things that implanted in our memories. And usually that has some significance because it's attached to a feeling. And it could be joy, it could be, multi-sensory taste and smell. And so I'm sort of obsessed with experience. What are the experiences that shape our lives?
Absolutely. I mean, both of us, in the marketing field, I love your take on branding. It's completely refreshing because a lot of times, when branding, we always just think about like the color schemes, like the beautiful logos, the materials and things of that nature. But realistically, what branding is what is left when that person representing that brand or that logo goes away. It's the experience that people remember, and the moments that, as a brand, as a company, I think what you're best at being able to deliver for the businesses that you work with outside of VikingSpawn is you're able to leave them some remarkable experiences that will let them remember the brand that they've worked with. And that's something that you bring to the table, which is very, very refreshing. And that's why I love kind of talking to you and picking your brains and stuff like that, because I learn a lot from just the stuff that you do. And I look at your LinkedIn, all the experiences that you've had in life. It's so fascinating. And now that you're able to bring that in, I mean, it's obvious, right? Like for VikingSpawn, when I think I told you the first time I met you at the chamber, when you look at your branding, it's like, you guys been doing this for a little bit, and that, and you haven't, right? And you're pretty much in your startup phase, couple years, but it looks like you guys are on point in what you guys are doing. You could literally compete with like large brands with your branding and messaging and stuff like that. So that's very, very fascinating.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, with VikingSpawn, and just to your point about brands, you can start a brand with a logo, but where the brand is, and your business, let's just say the brand, your logo, your business, where it's either going to be successful or fail is how you bring it to life. And so if you look at our logo on my t-shirt or behind me, it's playful, it's kind of gaming oriented, it's bright, it's got, a little bit of sort of an edge, but a silly edge. And it's super important to me that everything we do as a brand reflects that. Like, even at our shop, our desk, when people check in, it's a little bit playful. And when Stefan, our chief Viking, goes online and streams, or we do any ads, it needs to be matching sort of our brand promise, which is that we're going to make something cool for you if it's a computer, and we're going to keep it working. And we want to have fun with it. We don't want to be dry. We don't want to be clinical. We don't want to be, impersonal. In fact, we want to do everything that's opposite of that. We want to have a relationship. We want to be personable. We want to have fun. We want people to experience technology and gaming as something that's really cool and fun. And it's important for us to do that all the way from our logo to our shop to how we interact at events. Like, it has to all connect.
Absolutely. And you guys do a great job at it. What would you say people misunderstand about you, Denise, the most?
Okay, so this is personal. I think that people misunderstand how much heart I have, because if it's in business, especially in the corporate world, when I have corporate clients, I'm considered one of those people that's sort of a driver. Like if you do this personality test, I'm usually a director, a driver, something like that. And that can come off as maybe a little bit cold or a little bit type A or a little bit aggressive. But underneath all of it, it's like my heart is so big for people, and especially people that I have a relationship with. And in the corporate world, that's a little bit harder because you see things more from a corporate lens. But as a small business owner, that's really front and center is the relationships, and that's really driven by heart.
Most definitely. If there was one thing that you would say that you value most in life, what would you say that would be?
I would definitely say family. Family is the thing I value the most. I grew up in Southern California, and I have lived in Texas, Washington, D.C., Hong Kong, but I've always come back to this area because of family. And, as some generations age and new generations are born, it's really important to me to invest in the bonds, and like I could probably live anywhere, and sometimes I look at how California is compared to other states and cost of living, but I don't ever really leave for very long because of family. And to me, there's nothing more important.
Most definitely. Have you thought about the impact that you'll have in the next 5 years?
I have. If I could sort of paint the picture of impact that I want to have, and it's funny, I'm actually working on a project with a corporate client, PayPal, and I'm a real fan of PayPal. Their CEO is incredibly demonstrative about equity, inclusion, about the fact that everybody should have financial services across the world. And the project that I'm working on is called an Impact Summit. And so I'm getting very involved in what is it that we do every day that can lead to impact. And what I find is it's the small moments. It doesn't have to be over the top to have impact. It needs to be that it's genuine, it's authentic, it's relationship. And something that I've been thinking a lot about is during the pandemic, we've all sort of gotten a little bit more enclosed in our cocoons and our bubbles. And I think mental health has suffered because of it, because we haven't been as purposeful, or maybe we wanted to, but we were told it's not safe to go outside. You need to stay home. And so I think that it's been affecting people's emotional states. It has certainly for mine, to feel like you're connected to your purpose. And for me, it is relationship driven purpose. It is helping people. It's, my love language is act of service. My husband's is too. Like we love to be in service for others and with others. And that's the impact that I'd like to have moving forward. And I have to say the last couple of years have been super hard to have that feeling like we're on track about it. We're coming out of it. We're getting more motivated. We're feeling some new energy, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like the last couple of years has really put a damper on a lot of the things that we used to do. But I think what it has allowed us to do, and I'm sure you can attest to it, is we've been able to evolve. Right? Like be able to figure out better ways to make an impact and, have events, Zoom kind of, blew up and things of that nature. But now I think as we get out of this, I would say funk, right? We can combine those life and physical experiences with these online experiences now and create 100%. Something even better, right? Like, I think that's where the future is coming to now. I know we've talked about, go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I want to plant a seed with you, Chris, and with the audience. I think it was 2020, maybe the tail end of it, and I came up with this idea in my head that I really do want to explore when I have the motivation to do so. But the idea is, what if? instead of thinking, I can't, or this is a barrier, really shifting the energy to what if. And as you're saying about technology and live and, using things from Zoom to being with customers, with prospects in person, the phrase that I keep going back to is what if, as opposed to all the things that are barriers. What if we could do something like this? What if we could have fun making, a gaming night? What if, Chris, you could launch a podcast when there's probably a lot of podcasts out there already? It's that idea of what if that gets you sort of moving down the path towards where you want to go.
Most definitely. It's the possibilities that I think for me and a lot of people, and as entrepreneurs, it's what excites us. It's the possibility of creating something that was never there before, or improving something to a degree that was never thought possible. With that said, with what if you had $100 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
Okay, I'm going to laugh about that because I saw you last night, and originally I was prepared to say $10 million, and you said there's been inflation, so we're going to increase it to $100 million.
Yes.
Okay, if I had $100 million, there's something that I'd love to do, which is, I had this idea many years ago in the corporate field. I was producing events for adults, and I feel like adults, we grow out. Okay, we start as kids and we're very curious and we don't limit ourselves and we don't overthink things. But somehow when we become adults, we completely change our paradigm. And if I had $100 million, I would probably start a foundation that connects adults who have lost their ability to think and behave like kids, and reincorporate play and reincorporate the fact that it's okay to have fun. It's in fact amazing to have fun. And I feel like we want to retrain children not to lose the idea of play and fun and what if and exploration and curiosity, so that we have an environment full of adults that haven't lost that embrace that go into challenges in a more playful way. So I'd probably start a foundation around play.
Wow, that's definitely, it's fascinating, right? Like as a kid, you are absolutely correct. There's things that when you're a kid, that's why we break our arms, we bruise our knees, we scrape our legs and all that stuff as kids, because we're trying to expand on what's possible. And going back to the what if, that we were talking about a moment ago, it's really, we've lost that as growing up. And I think society sort of trains us in a way, right? It trains us to lose that aspect of curiosity, of that childlike curiosity about like, hey, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. And then that kind of gets reinforced in life, right? Go to school, find a safe and secure job so you can retire when you're old. But think about it, if you look at it from that perspective, you're looking so far into the future when you're when you're like retiring already. And what you're trying to create is really a foundation that can kind of take us into the moment, bring us back to the reality of where we are and where we've been, and see this stuff, as a child. Like for a long period of time, I've always worked and things of that nature. And my wife was a stay-at-home mom, so she got to, I would say, enjoy the fruits of the development of our children. And then, with the pandemic, I got to shift gears and started to work from home, watching my kids grow up. And then for a moment, they were at home, homeschooled, right? Like when the schools were shut down and stuff like that. I've enjoyed that so much because seeing them inspires me to be better at what I do and what I can accomplish. Because for them, they don't really see the obstacles. They see like, well, let me push. Absolutely. And I would love for you to do that. If I had won $100 million, I will definitely put money into your foundation so we can get that going.
Right. I know in local chamber, there's a couple businesses that really cater to kids, but could you imagine if those businesses, I'm going to use one of them, Love to Play. It's a playground for kids. It's an indoor playground. Yeah. And could you imagine if as adults, we had a playground like that it's, when we're adults and we're with children, we give ourselves permission to play because we're guiding the kids and we're playing with the kids. But imagine a whole chamber coming together and playing and just having fun. I think we as humans limit ourselves to do that because we think, well, we should be more serious. We do a lot of shoulds. We should on ourselves, as I like to say. We should be serious. We should be, crunching numbers. We should be doing whatever it is behind the scenes to drive to the future. And we totally forget the idea of having fun and playing as inspirational things that actually help our life experience.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. I'll definitely, shout out to Love to Play. They're my client as well. And if anybody local in Chino Valley listens to this episode, make sure you go to Love to Play. When you go to Love to Play, do the red slide. I love going down that thing. Like every time I try to hold my phone coming down that red slide, I can never hold my phone without dropping it. So like anybody that's there, make sure this is like a carrot, like a little carrot that I'm leaving down there. And then, let us know, comment on this episode. Let us know if you see us in person. How was that like? So for sure. We should definitely talk to the chamber about that, setting up a chamber night at play. I know we did one a while back at Infusion Zone, another great local business here in Chino Valley, Infusion Zone with Deanna and her husband, and we were able to play laser tag and things of that nature. But yeah, I think more
so fun.
Of these, yeah, absolutely. It was great.
It was so fun. Actually, when we were at Infusion Zone, so a couple of things that I noticed. One, there was the set of us, myself included, adults that were talking and mingling and kind of over in one area that were trying to be the adult business owners and do what we're supposed to do, which is networking. And then there was another set, and I did this as well. So a lot of us did both, that went and played, that went and experienced what Infusion Zone has. We went and did the laser tag. My husband and I went and did the VR. And, it was fun. It was so much fun, and I think that we could all use a bit more of that.
Absolutely, especially being in business and we're all working from home, cooped up, and we're sort of like coworkers as entrepreneurs. Every time we see each other, we sort of like get excited as kids, like, hey, like, here's my buddy doing something different. It adds to our day pretty much.
Absolutely.
What was your childhood like growing up? I know you grew up in the Pasadena, Sierra Madre, Arcadia area, and you went to Arcadia High. Yep. So how was that growing up?
Arcadia was this little bubble of, I would say, pretty much upper middle class, very kind of safe, a beautiful area. So to be honest, I was the kid, like I said, that was wearing a blazer at 13. I was the kid that wanted to grow up really, really fast. I just thought, I want to be an adult. I'm going to go away to college. I'm going to be an adult. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to do all these things. And perhaps that's why I wouldn't say regressing. I would say I'm progressing back into more childlike things, because I was probably a kid that lost a little bit of the play and just being a kid. And so I do see that as something that is my own very personal journey to be an adult that can have fun and play, because I was a serious kid that thought, okay, I'm going to be an AP and I'm going to have a job while I'm in school. And I babysat kids and I worked at a doctor's office and I was a waitress, which, by the way, if anybody that's been in food service, I commend all of you. When I actually interview people for jobs in my field, designing experiences, one of the things I always ask is, have you ever waited tables? Because to me, food service professionals, especially on the customer end, the waiting tables or bartenders, the client facing end, it is the best training for how to anticipate people's needs, how to multitask, how to have different things in different workflows, how to work fast and deliver an experience, right? You have this opportunity to remember what people like to order if they're customers that come back a lot of times. You have an opportunity to make this something special for your customers. And I commend anybody that has been in the food service industry because it's fast and it's fun and it's hard work. And you really are trying to create a memory for people.
Wow, that's we should bottle that up and give it. One of the sponsors for this episode is Thinking Local, and as a Thinking Local business as well, we work with a lot of restaurants, and staffing has always been an issue. And at the
Yeah.
Career Expo, we had a lot of high school students come out and apply for different jobs and things of that nature. But I think a lot of the children or a lot of the young folks are looking for that like one up job, like like I want to work for a bigger company and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you're right.
It needs to be bigger and better.
Yeah, exactly. But you just hit the nail on the head there, that if they're able to work in a service type business like that, where they're serving people and anticipating their needs, it just makes them grow exponentially in the experience that they can bring to whatever their dream career, dream job is in the next step of their lives. It's a great starting job.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved waiting tables. I mean, it probably was my favorite job because I didn't own the restaurant, but I was in control of how that day was going to go. I could deliver exceptional experience for my customers. I could not if it was my choice. And my choice directly related to how much fun I had when I was there, the customer experience. It directly related to how much money I made in tips. I had control over how I showed up at work.
Absolutely. Well, with that said, did you think of a dream career or a dream job as a child?
So as a kid, I really looked up to Barbara Walters. Like I said, I was studying to be a journalist, and I did radio in college and produced stories in college. And I really wanted to be Barbara Walters because I thought, just like you're doing now with doing podcasts, in those days, it was really broadcasters. And how can you learn about a person's experience? And I loved the fact that she could ask what I perceived as difficult questions, what I perceived as getting to the nuggets to try and find, some meaning and somebody's purpose. And I just wanted to be Barbara Walters.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, it's good that sometimes when you're growing up, instead of just thinking about a job, thinking about a career path, we think of a person that's already in that career path that we're trying to traverse towards, and use them as sort of a muse. Like, I'm a very big Kobe fan, and one of the things that there's this video, I think I don't know if it's an ESPN documentary or it's just somebody on YouTube that made it. It's called Muse, and it's involved Kobe Bryant and all these people that he put in front of him that he kind of looked up to, and then one after the other, it kind of gives them a formula to follow, because all these people, their lives, especially for public individuals like a Barbara Walters, their life is out there for you to basically learn from. And then it kind of gives you the nuggets, like the little breadcrumbs to follow and even exceed where their life led and what impact they have, and you can have a bigger one.
Absolutely, 100%.
Were you a kid that liked school? Did you have any favorite subjects or maybe least favorite subjects?
I loved
growing
school.
up? Okay.
So I loved school. Now, I still was the teenager that ditched class maybe every once in a while. I was that kid, but I loved school. I am very competitive. I love to excel at school. I loved a challenge. I had several teachers, in junior high or high school that would challenge me. And, they would say, can you do this better? Or can you do this in a different way? And I'm pretty creative. And so I loved the challenge. I also liked the arts in school. I was in dance. I was in drama. We had a TV network at my high school, and I was a reporter on my TV network. And now I look back at those videos when I was 16, and I'm like, but that's fine. And then in college, I really liked the freedom to think about it as this is my experience to learn. I get to explore. Yes, there were certain topics or certain classes that I had to take as prereqs, but it's the first time as sort of a junior adult, you can explore what you want to explore, the classes that you want to learn about. And it doesn't necessarily need to be tied to a job. It's about expanding your own knowledge. And to me, that was amazing. Plus, I went to college in Santa Barbara, so we were near the beach, and that was pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think school
Yeah.
plays a very important part of our life, but also I think the experiences that we have while we're in school. I went to, for me, I had an opportunity to travel back and forth to Asia. Going to school here in Chino Valley and Chino Hills. I went to Eagle Canyon Elementary School, and then I went to high school in the Philippines and in Asia. And what I found was there's a lot of differences in the way cultures teach, and
Yes.
sometimes different cultures focus on different things. I think here in the West, we focus more on like a lot of the holistic type of things, and like English, math, and things of that nature. But in Asia, what I found was, for me, it wasn't all great, because I had teachers that were very specific, like, you need to do this and you have to do it this way, and you can't do it any other way. So that you feel like that kind of stifles your creativity. And to your point, you're a very creative person. And when you have those things or people that tell you this is the rigidity of how to accomplish something, you could either like succumb to that rigidity, or you could figure out a different way to give them what they want with that rigidity and still get what you want. So I think for me, that was the impact that I had, that school had for me when I was trying to traverse between two different cultures, pretty much.
100%.
Did you, when you were a child, was there something specific in your childhood that when you look back at now, you feel it led you to where you are today?
It's a great question. I grew up in a house that was a loving house, but to be honest, it was a little bit dysfunctional. My parents were divorced when I was about 12. They remained very good friends. But I was an oldest kid, and I took on a lot of responsibility for my sister. And it's my nature to sort of take on more responsibility, hence why I was wearing a blazer when I was 13. I was that little adult. But, I think that growing up as feeling sort of the burdens of what I was thinking my parents were experiencing did cause me to grow up really fast. And that has been sort of a theme in my whole life, is what's next? What's the next thing going to be? Looking towards the future and being very future focused. And the older I get, I'm trying to be more present focused, to be honest. I think being present focused is a beautiful thing to be, and we don't do it enough.
Going through that, was there, you would say, a turning point in your life that you felt that kind of led you to make certain decisions and change the trajectory of your life?
I think, living in a house that didn't feel stable, it felt loving, but it didn't feel stable. There was uncertainty. I didn't know, how to juggle the relationship between the house with living with my mother, because we lived with her, or then, visiting with my father and going in between. That was a little bit tenuous. I became really astute at trying to understand what people's emotions were. I became really astute at anticipating and thinking about, how might they feel if this or this or this happened. And so it did give me the ability to sort of be empathic for people. I was always trying to anticipate what people's needs were. And so that's probably why I went into the service business. That's probably why I wanted to interview people. That's probably why I got really curious about human beings and how they think and feel and behave. And that ultimately shaped why I design experiences. I guess the word I would use, and the word that I use a lot in business, is intention. I became very intentional about trying to architect what was about to happen. And whether that was architecting, how am I going to juggle Christmas between two different parents? Or, what's my mom going to feel? Or what's my dad going to feel? I became very intentional about thinking about other people's feelings and behaviors and their actions, and probably led to all the career decisions that I've always had. At the end of the day, we are children living in adult bodies. We really are. We are 10-year-old kids, 13-year-old kids whose bodies tend to get older, but whose minds don't necessarily.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think a lot of our listeners may or may not have experienced exactly the same scenario that you were in, but I think there's something in their life that they can kind of point to that's sort of similar, that they can kind of unpack from what you said and kind of learn from it, and not let whatever situation they were facing at the time, which we probably thought that this is the hardest thing that I've ever tried to navigate. But in the end, it makes you better. And like, you're absolutely right. I mean, having gone through the interview so far, like, that's absolutely why you are who you are, because of the experiences that you had growing up. And that's why, it's very, very important for us to understand, for the listeners, that we take whatever we go through in life and use it as a fuel to make us better into the future of our lives.
Yeah, it's sort of like we accumulate bricks to build our house. And the bricks can be memories. The bricks can be good memories, traumatic memories. The bricks can be moments in time that happened. There might be a brick of a very significant thing that maybe happened in your childhood, and it keeps building and building, and brick upon brick upon brick. And we aren't in control of all the bricks when we are kids. But when we become adults, we have the ability to look at the brick house that was created in our lives and to restructure it if we want to. I'm going to use an analogy here. We could remodel the brick house. We could tear the brick house down. We can appreciate the bricks that were given to us. That's a loose analogy, but I do think that we as adults have the power to take a look at what we were given and see what we want it to be now.
Absolutely. Well, now that we've gotten to know your story a bit more, are you ready to go a little bit deeper?
Fantastic. Let's do it.
Let's take this conversation behind the alleys and go deeper.
Nothing to be scared about. Absolutely not. I think because I think it what we've talked about so far for our listeners kind of gives them an overall overview of what your perspective is, right? And I think the set of questions that I have for you next will sort of paint a picture of why it is that you are thinking the way you are, because we've laid out the foundation of who you are as a person and what the experiences that you've had in life that led you to where you are as of today, the Denise of today, and what decisions you will make into the future. We can't predict what those will be, but we know what possibilities are there for you. My next question is, what does being part of the Main Street community mean to you and to VikingSpawn Repair?
I thought a lot about this question. I think what it means to me is the fact that, especially after a pandemic, our worlds shrunk, right? Our globe shrunk. We've all gone through an experience. The whole world, every culture, every language, every creed, we've all gone through an experience that has been an equalizer. It really has been an equalizer. It has not been fun, but we've all had it. And now we can start at a very local level to pick ourselves up, at a very sort of smaller geographical level, to reconnect with our communities, to be intentional about the way that we connect with our communities, to take a look at what our our plans had been pre-pandemic and how post-pandemic that might have shifted, and to sort of lay new brick foundations, if you will, and restructure the houses that we live in, because we fundamentally have changed. We are very local now. We are extremely local now. And we owe it to ourselves and our communities to help each other pick up our pieces and, have businesses that can be profitable, that have communities that can thrive, that have families that can feel safe, that have friendships that can go explore. And it really starts from the home to the small business to the community to the city, and the cities that surround it. Like, it is time for us to make the areas that we live in, the areas that we do business in, thrive. I feel like it's our mission.
Absolutely. That's such a great point. Like, I remember, whenever you watch those Western movies, right? Like, you see them like cowboying, like, with their horses kind of walking into a town, and everybody in the city knows each other, or town, and kind of looks
Yeah.
at that person coming into the city. It's like, you're an outsider. But I think what that says to me is those people that live in that small town are super connected, that they pretty much know if someone is not from their area. And not to say that that area or our area should be unwelcoming, but I think we need to go deeper into the connections that we have within our communities, because we can, the decisions that we make as a business, we have a responsibility to be, like you said, be successful, because we're making a difference in the community with the service and products that we provide that community. And I think if we're all interconnected, we can help each other bring out the best in us, but also rely on each other so we can keep everybody sort of fed in a way where we throw each other business, and we kind of keep the whole ship and the whole town kind of going forward as one cohesive unit.
100%. And, I really like the vision that I have for what happened over the last couple of years is our big world kind of shrunk down into, most people have been in the same room for 8 to 12 hours a day in their homes, in this little tiny box, like, and we're going to go like this again. But we need to radiate out in the circles that are from our families to our friends, to our local businesses, to our cities. I really believe that that is the way that we're going to feel better, that we're going to feel like there's a collective purpose again. And probably that there's a stronger fabric of people taking care of each other. Maybe everything that's been happening is to teach us how to take better care of each other.
You're absolutely right there. Being an entrepreneur now, having a long career, that is a very successful career, was being an entrepreneur on your radar when you were a child?
It wasn't. And one of the reasons it wasn't is my father was a lifer at one company his entire career. One company. He was a salesman at Xerox, and he started there after Vietnam. And I thought that was the way that you go to college. I wasn't certainly going to be in the military, but some people do. And then you get your job and you stay at that company forever. And that was what I knew. And I didn't stay at one company forever. I did for a very long time, but then I sort of realized there's many ways to play the game. There's many ways to design your life, if you will. And I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. What I set out to do was to not be locked down into putting all my energy into a company that I didn't have equity in, a company that I was just one of many. How could I put my energy into things that I was emotionally attached to? And if I was emotionally attached to a corporation, but yet I was one of thousands, and that corporation wasn't necessarily emotionally attached to me, was that in my best interest? And I realized it wasn't. It it was in my best interest to do things that I was passionate about, to do things that sparked my joy, that sparked my curiosity. And so I started as a freelancer before I really thought of entrepreneurship. When my husband and I met each other, um, he's an immigrant and he came here from Sweden. And that was sort of when we decided that let's start a small business together. Probably as an immigrant, and you'll have to interview him at some time, you come from another country and you see sort of that American dream that you can be what you want to be. And we started to design it together, and it's been exciting.
That's fascinating. I think you're definitely, Stefan. I'll have him on the podcast in the near future. I'd love to get his take because he has I think like we were talking about at over coffee a couple of days ago. He has a different set of perspectives, set of eyes in this same journey that you both are going through. And I would love to get his perspective on it as well, especially him being Sweden, a real Viking, he's
a Viking.
I know, that would be very, very fascinating just to hear his perspective coming into the craziness that we have here in our society today, and what he thinks about it. That would be a very, very interesting conversation to unpack. Was there
absolutely?
You said that your dad was a lifer at Xerox as a salesman. Was there any at all in your life like a entrepreneur influence that you saw other than maybe Barbara Walters, because she ran her own media, like I guess business in a way, doing whatever she was trying to do. Would you say that somebody like her would be an entrepreneur influence in your life?
She was definitely an influence. I wouldn't say as an entrepreneur. I think I see her as a pioneer for women and for pushing glass ceilings. And that was one of the reasons that I was really just enamored with her, and that she could go to the highest levels and ask the hardest questions and get answers. And I was fascinated by that. The city that I grew up in, Arcadia, there were a lot of kids that I went to school with whose families owned businesses, real estate businesses. There was a car wash in Arcadia that was a family-owned business. A good friend of mine, his family owned a restaurant. And so I definitely saw this around me. And actually what I did see was a lot of the kids that had families that had started businesses, they were thriving. They were building something for their family, for their legacy, for their kids to take over. And I really, really admired it. I think that it was admiration that was sort of my first sticking point there, was like, wow, not everybody takes the same path. And I don't know that they might teach you that in school now, but when I went to school, that wasn't necessarily something that was articulated or taught. It was sort of a prescriptive education. You do this, 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 and go to college, get your major, get your job. I definitely hope that parents today teach their kids that there's multiple paths, that there isn't just one path, that there's multiple ways that you can go do something as long as you have passion and you put energy into it.
Most definitely. In your life, you've already were successful as an experienced and branding expert, branding entrepreneur, and you decided to start up another business with your husband, right? As you had mentioned when he came here. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Sure. So that came about first and foremost because he had a skill set. And so I will say it was not architected like, hey, let's start a small business and we're going to have our plan on paper and it's going to be amazing and it's going to be completely bulletproof and articulated. I'll be super transparent. We started it because he had a skill set, because the job market was hard for an immigrant to get into, because we wanted to just get him doing things. I was working every day. I was a freelancer, which means I have my own company and I work for many different clients. And it was, I think, in August of 2020 that we decided, let's put some real energy into this. Let's start stop dabbling sort of from the house, a home-based business, and let's get a brick and mortar and let's decide what we want to do. And the last couple of years, we've been learning a lot and we've been refining what our business offers. And I think that's probably pretty normal for people that start businesses. You might cast a very wide net and you sort of get more focused and more focused and more clarity. And it's a really interesting ride. I mean, it is the journey. I mean, yes, there's a destination that we have as a goal, but it is the journey of, some days it feels like the grind, and some days it feels like, the whiteboard, the white space opportunity to do whatever we want. And some days it feels safe, and some days it feels challenging, and it is a total journey.
Most definitely. Well, speaking of journey, how's the journey been like trying to balance, like you mentioned, you're freelance, you practically are an entrepreneur, just an independent entrepreneur by yourself. You are the business. How is that journey like trying to balance your experience in branding business with a completely different business?
Steep learning curve. Very, very steep learning curve. In corporate America, there's just different systems. There's different ways of approaching things. There's larger budgets. There's more stakeholders that it takes to make a decision. In Main Street America, it's us. We are a husband and wife team, but we are also two individuals that need to sit down and have business meetings, that need to have strategy meetings. We've started sort of this new thing where for our own accountability, for our own goal setting, every week we sit down and we say, what are the things that are must do this week? Let's get them off our plate because they need to get done. What are the strategic things that we want to work on that are sort of building blocks for our future? And what are the things that we desire to do this week? Because it gives us fun. It gives us a sense of purpose. It gives us a feeling that we're attached to our goals. And every week we sit down now and we map this out, and we have a copy at home and we have a copy at our shop in our office there. And it's really good to keep us on track. I think when you start a small business and if you don't, have resources and a lot of funding and many, many employees, and you are the business, you have to do everything. You have to be on the business and in the business, and you need to do both. And it's a steep learning curve.
You having like we're talking about, you having a vast experience in branding and experience design, where you're not only held responsible for basically designing, right, the results and implementing those plans. How was it like to start a business that you weren't directly working on day to day?
So I did start with I will say we. So we started with a skill set, which was my husband's, and his skill set is he was the kid that broke things and put them back together. He broke things on purpose so that he could find a better way to put it back together. He is the adult that is a generalist on pretty much all things tech. Our combined nature, what we bring together is he has technical knowledge and I have brand building knowledge. And so we're trying to use that together to, I would say, like I said, master plan what our brand stands for, master plan why the colors, the logo, the tagline, the experience in our shop, the things like we give out Swedish fish when your order is complete. What is play versus what is serious. We're trying to do that intentionally. So the brand building, the marketing, the voice that we have, our purpose, all of that is intentional. I will say, as the reality of being on a business, and he's in it every day. So I would say he's in it and I'm more on it. The reality of really who is our ideal customer, How can we serve them? What do they need? Uh, that is the thing that you can think that you have a plan, but you have to essentially be flexible to course correct that plan, to refine that plan, to look at data as you have data, to talk to people, to get advice, to ask for help, to reach out to your community, to try and do things not alone, but with people that support you to be a better business. Like that's where we are right now. We want to be a better business, which means for us, we might do less things, but we want to do them better. We want to listen to other people's thoughts, other people's expertise. We don't want to put ourselves in a silo where we feel like it's just us in this little box. We need to be connected to people in our community so that we can grow the right business with the right services for the right customers in the right ways.
Wow, absolutely. What would you say were some of the challenges that you faced when you guys just, you decide now, okay, Stefan, let's open this brick and mortar store. What were some of the first challenges that you guys faced at that moment in time?
So I would say the first challenges are probably still our same challenges. I mean, our shop's been open since 2020. We started in a pandemic. Our challenges have been customer acquisition, just getting our name out there. Our challenges have been overcoming, I would say, the barrier of supply chain problems. I think no business has gone without seeing, their own supply chain problems. I saw Adele a couple weeks ago. She canceled a concert. She was supposed to do a residency in Las Vegas, and she posted on social media this gut-wrenching post. I mean, this is a woman that has a huge machine, multi-million-dollar machine behind her, and she can't get her show to execute the way she wants to because of COVID, because people are sick, because of supply chain problems. To me, that's a part, like I was saying earlier, that this pandemic has been a very, very much an equalizer. That's a great equalizer story. We are this big, she is this big, we do totally different things, but we have something that we can share here, which is, it is a struggle. It has been a struggle. No business hasn't felt some shift in the last couple of years. And so for us, I would say, the initial struggles of what are we going to call ourselves? How are we going to brand ourselves? Have turned into the struggle of how do we stay open? How do we grow a business? How do we work on the business and in the business? How do we do things lean? How do we ask for help?
Absolutely. I think, for me personally, what you're saying resonates so very much because, like, prior to the pandemic, I was, working a job that I lost, right? A couple months before this global pandemic hit, and at that time, my wife was working, not working. She was a stay-at-home mom. We got 4 kids, so I was the breadwinner and all that stuff, and so trying to navigate and figuring out the situation that we had at that time was quite difficult. And we thought, wow, this is so hard. And then this global pandemic happens. It puts things in perspective where it's like, what problems we have is so small compared to so many other people that are suffering right now, and so many businesses just in the last 2 years alone. I think this is one of, if I'm not mistaken, like one of the times that we've had so many closures of businesses in recent memory, right? That's something that a lot of businesses are struggling. And for you guys to come out of that and still be here, although there's struggles along the way, and I think that you've been able to create a brand that has something to move forward with, which is very, very impressive. And, I commend you guys for that. With that said, what did you wish that you knew prior to, starting this business? Even without, you could forget about, the uncertainty of the pandemic, but what did you wish that you knew other than that prior?
Okay, so there's a couple things. First off, I really do wish, and maybe I'm uneducated on this, but I really do wish there was better education and resources available, that were well known, that were easy to find, that were, how to start up a business. And I don't mean, a book that you can buy at Barnes and Noble called How to Start Up a Business for Dummies, but I mean community-based resources. And that's one of the reasons why we joined the chamber. That, quite honestly, we wanted to get connected with our community precisely for those types of things. I do wish that I knew that the journey is not straight. And somebody could have said it to me, but you can you can hear something and it doesn't really ring true or resonate until it's personal. Or another analogy I have is like, once you learn of something, then you start to see it everywhere, but before it was in your awareness, you didn't even know it existed. I wish that I really understood how not linear it is to start a business, how it is a path, but it is going to morph and change, and you have to be flexible, and you have to remove your own personal ego from it a little bit. Because if you have a service business and if you have a business that has customers, you have to anticipate their needs. You have to respond to their needs. You have to make your customer the priority and listen to what they want and need. If you are pushing your business based on what you think you have to push out, it is not the right way. It needs to be, what do your customers need? What do they want? What is going to make their lives better?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's quite amazing. And like for me, one of the reasons that I started this podcast was exactly what it is that you're saying, because there's so many businesses, even if they're already seasoned businesses, they've been around, they need a little bit of a different perspective. They might have collected dust, and if, for lack of the better word, in trying to navigate the new normal of business people. Yeah. And I think, being able to interview people such as yourself that are going through this, because I think I talk to a lot of my other guests and, a lot of future guests, that most podcasts talk to people that have already made it. Or I'm not saying that you guys haven't made it, but in a way where they're like the Elon Musks of the world and all that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of they would think the problems that we're dealing with as a small Main Street businesses are small ticky-tack problems, right? Because they're worried about like how to keep the stockholders happy, how to, iterate on their product better and, more productivity, less, more efficient and things of that nature. But we deal with real world things where we open our doors, no one's walking through, right? We can't get our, I talked to a business, we can't get the city to approve my sign. I have an old business, like the old business that was here in my location. I still have their sign. The city hasn't removed it. There's things like that we deal with on a day-to-day as a Main Street small business that a lot of the bigger corporations don't get to deal with. And that's why I really appreciate you kind of, hammering that point home. And we do need those resources here in our community, whether it's a chamber or it's the city or it's us small businesses coming together and putting those things, because there are more small businesses that may be thinking of starting, but they don't know where to go. And when you read those books, I've read those, How to Start Business for Dummies and things of that nature. They're all esoteric things. They're not telling you in your city, you have to talk to this person to be able to get the permit, to be able to do that. And if you fill this paperwork wrong, then in the future, if you want to pivot and change, then you have to go through this like hoops and valleys and stuff like that just to be able to get something tiny accomplished. So I think I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Chris, it made me think, if I were to lay out what it means to be an entrepreneur and have a small business, as I'm listening to you talk back to me, I would put, and I want people to visualize this, put 3 you're going to make a triangle, make a visual triangle. And one part of the triangle is you need the brass tacks knowledge of permits and how do you do all the things financially, permits, all the legalities, all the brass tacks of building a business. The other part of the triangle is how do you build a brand that delivers an experience? And what I mean by that is that it is a holistic brand that stands for something, that every time you talk about it, it's consistent, that it's not wavering, that it's totally representative of your emotion about what you do, and that it delivers on your promise all the time. And the third part of the triangle, and probably the most important part of this triangle, is customer obsession. Because every business is going to have some customer, and whether you're a small business or you're a corporate business, I've worked with a lot of corporate clients on this very thing, is customer obsession. Understanding your customer and really, really listening. Just because you can make a great cupcake doesn't mean that there's not other cupcake suppliers out there. What is it that your customer wants out of that cupcake? And how can you deliver not just the physical part of the cupcake, but the entire experience around that cupcake? So that would be my triangle, the trifecta of what it means to be like a Main Street entrepreneur.
So thank you for sharing that. You hit the nail on the head again there. And for me, as a marketer, like for you as well, having to deal with a lot of different clients. When we deal with these clients, they come to us with a problem, like I need more customers, I need this, and I need that. But having the customer obsession part of what you're saying, for me, that's, I would say, is the key to be able to create a brand experience. Because if you do not know who your customer is, you cannot create a brand experience for them that will actually be a resonating experience for them. So, but having that, brass tacks, how to do something and run a business, the nitty gritty of the technicalities and the administrative part, and creating a brand that people will resonate with, and then being customer obsessed. That's that right there. Like you said, the trifecta is something I took note of that I'm going to be using for all my clients and for myself individually on my business as well. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Awesome. It was an epiphany that just happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for bringing it out.
Definitely. I really, really appreciate it. And I think conversations like these bring out, like for me, I was having meetings at my old job, and then I came up with this, like, I think I did a presentation at the chamber a couple months ago. I'm not sure if you were there when I did that, but that whole like step-by-step thing that I discussed on that meeting, on that presentation, was a napkin kind of scribble while we were brainstorming about our plan, because I was trying to get our executives and our team to kind of listen to me and kind of have an idea of how to actually implement this. So I had to paint a picture of how the system would work. And as you came up with this, the way you did, was exactly the way I came up with that. Was just like, okay, think about this, like kind of dumbing it down for myself so that I can explain it properly to them. So this was absolutely great. I'm gonna make a graphic of this. I'm gonna send it to you, so we could use it. We could share it to all our business people. And I think I invite you to talk to our chamber to do a presentation just on this aspect alone. I urge you to do so. There are so many businesses. Like last night, we were at the multi-chamber mixer. A lot of the conversations that I was having with a lot of the small businesses, and some of the questions when they find out, hey, I'm a marketing guy and all this stuff, they ask me these questions. If they just knew what you just said right here, that would set them up for, it's not the silver bullet that will solve all their problems, but at least gives them a framework to start with and kind of go from there.
Maybe we need to put together a handbook from all of these interviews that you're doing, a Main Street handbook, and lessons learned from small businesses, and we can have a little framework, and we can have stories, and that would be super cool.
I will. That's one of the goals that I have for this podcast, is after I interview every 100 episode, I'm going to summarize every single interview into different chapters, and we'll make that available as a free tool to any business owner that's trying to navigate their business, or anybody that's trying to start their business. So definitely this will absolutely be there. I think this should be, I will put this, even though you're not my first episode, I think this alone should be at the very front of that guide.
Awesome.
So absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, if you could have just one superpower, what would that be? But before you answer that, let's take a quick break from our sponsors.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thinkin' Local, a fundraising and giving-based marketing platform whose mission is to connect local Main Street businesses who care about making an impact in the local community with schools and nonprofits who believe in supporting their local businesses. Find out more by visiting local.com. And we're back, digging for gold on the Behind Main Street podcast.
So, Denise, if you could have that one superpower, what would it be?
I mean, I'm going to go for something super cool, and that would be to fly. I would love to fly and be able to explore the entire planet and be able to explore all the cultures, all the beautiful parts of nature, the people. I am so fascinated by our planet, by culture, by experiences, how people live, how people think. I would want to fly and see it all.
Most definitely. What would you say, in your opinion, is a crucial personality trait that any entrepreneur needs to have to succeed?
A crucial personality trait. Can I do more than one?
Most definitely. Do as many as you'd like.
All right. I'll do a couple. I think curiosity is crucial. Having sort of a personality to seek, being curious about things, because that means you're always going to be learning. You're not going to stay stagnant. I think a personality trait you really do need to have to be an entrepreneur is that you can motivate yourself. You're self-motivated. Because nobody's going to tell you exactly what to do and give you sort of a play-by-play of how to do your entire day. And I guess my whole analogy today is a triangle, Chris, because I'm going for three. And the third is resilience. I think that you need to have resilience because, like I said, it's not a linear journey. And you are going to learn every single step of the way, and you can either embrace that learning and make it sort of an ingredient in your evolution, or you can get derailed by it. And the two options are really if you have resilience.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that. What would you say? I know we talked about this a little bit last night, but what would you say you would consider your biggest failure, and what did that teach you?
This is an interesting one. When I was in the corporate world, by the time I was actually working at an agency, by the time I was 29, I was a vice president. And I ran operations for our Los Angeles office. And this was a company, not a huge company, it was about 1,000 people worldwide. We had offices all over the world. I was a terrible boss. I mean, I was just not a good boss. And the reason was I was a nervous boss because instead of empowering the people that worked in my department, I felt responsible for their performance, which caused me to micromanage a little bit, which caused me to course correct them, to try and control their learning and their growth. And I ultimately took myself out of the job. I removed myself from the job and I said, I'm leaving. I'm going to take a leave of absence because I'm not doing my best work. And I know that I'm not giving my staff my best self. I care so much, but what they're seeing doesn't look like caring. What they're seeing looks like a bad manager. It was a very confusing time for me. And, I was in my 20s and my ego was certainly attached to a title and climbing up a ladder. I mean, I'll be honest about that. What it led me to do was to reevaluate how I showed up with my clients, with people that I work with. And one of my learnings really since then, and will continue to be a learning, is we're all human. And we need to treat people as humans. We don't need to treat people as assets or as tools or as subordinate assistants. We need to treat people as humans and have empathy. And I ultimately put myself into a 2-year coaching journey. I mean, I'm a certified coach now. And I don't I didn't do it so that I could have necessarily a coaching business. I did it so that any business I do, regardless of how I'm working with people, I am approaching it more from a coaching aspect than a managerial aspect. And to me, that was such a huge mental shift, huge. And I use it with friends, with family, in business. And it was probably my biggest life lesson from what started as an ego failure. I mean, to leave a job as a vice president because I wasn't a great manager, that there was a lot of ego there in that. And it took me some years to be able to own up to that. But I've made amends to the people that I don't think that I was my best self for. We are now great friends and work together, and we work together. We're not working in a hierarchy.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very, very impactful to a lot of us, to me personally, and to a lot of our listeners. One thing for me, when I was working, I started working at a really young age. I was doing multi-level marketing business when I was 12. So one of the biggest egos that I had it's like a chip on my shoulder, was like, everybody was like treating me like a kid. Right. And I'm sure if I was working with someone like you, I would feel like you're not considering what I bring to the table, even though if by the time I was in my early 20s, I've had years of experience. And for me, I was always with that ego, like, hey, I can do this better. I can, like, I've been doing this for so long. I've been doing this for sometimes like longer than you have. You just got out of college and things like that. And I had that ego. And I think for me, it took starting a family and being a father that really allowed me to step back, and because this little being that I had, I couldn't control, right? It's going to grow. I can guide it to how it's going to grow, but I can't tell it, okay, stop crying, stop pooping all over the place, stop asking me for milk all the time. And so it gave me a lot more patience. And I think for you, that's what you discovered, right? Because just the interview that we've had, it painted a picture of your personality, that you are definitely somebody that is very goal oriented, that you want to achieve something big in life, and you're gonna make it there, right? And you expect a lot of the people around you to be in the same mode as you. But sometimes people work. And you learned from it, and I have, and a lot of the business owners that are going to be listening to this podcast have learned that people that they deal with work in a different pace. They all have different pace. And for you, taking the journey and step to be a coach instead of a boss, it actually transformed you into a great leader, right? That will be able to take a whole company from where it is to where it should be. That's why I'm very excited for the journey that VikingSpawn is going to take. We've had like exchange texts in the middle of the morning, or not middle, but like really early in the morning.
When you're up in the middle of the night, Chris, and I'm like, why are you up at 3 in the morning?
Exactly. I've seen some of your competition and things of that nature. Like, I don't want to put it out there, but I think they need to watch out, because like where you guys are going to be headed is, because you're able to learn from what they do. And by the time you implement what you are trying to bring into your business, I just imagine it to be like really, really groundbreaking. So I'm very excited.
We have a goal to be a resource for adults and kids to embrace technology, to game, to have fun, be a little bit competitive. I will say one thing for anybody: don't coach your spouse if you do business with your spouse. It's not a great idea to try and be your business partner and your coach and a spouse. That I've learned.
Oh my God. That is so true. Oh
You can
man.
talk to Stefan the Viking about that one.
I will. I will definitely do that. That will be a very, I'm sure there's funny stories that will come out of that.
Exactly.
Well, is there someone or something that you or you guys as a partnership turn to when you're feeling stuck?
I think it's important to turn to local humans, meaning people that you know, people that you can actually have a conversation with when you're stuck. I think many people have a tendency, and I know I certainly do, to go to Dr. Google and to search for things and to try and read everything. But I don't actually know if that's the best approach because you can get information overload and you're also keeping yourself in this little window of just you in a box. I think it's really important to have face to face or, interpersonal conversations. That to me is the best way to unstick yourself. Also, sometimes you need to shift your energy a little bit, and it's great to get energy and give energy with people. And so I do encourage people to get out of if you're there, to get out of the thought that you can research your way out of a sticking point. I would say talk, converse, gain insight, vent, clear the energy. And to me, that's the best way to sort of shift things into a better space.
You're absolutely right there because I think a lot of us, when we do that research, we have a different perspective on how to research a specific topic. And for me, like, I've tested this theory before where, in line with what you're saying, I got someone else that's not in my line of work. I posed a question and we needed to come up with the answer, right? And the way I took to get to the answer was completely different to how this other person who's not related to my industry took to get to that answer, right? And being
Yes,
able to speak to
absolutely.
somebody that does this on a day-to-day basis. Like for me, if I had a pain in my back, I'm going to research, and I've done this. You go to WebMD, you go to Google.
Hmm.
Next thing you know, I have cancer, or I have,
Yeah, exactly.
you know what I mean, or I have like an incurable
Yeah.
disease, or like it's like it scares you, and it's like, oh, but no. Like if you ask a doctor, he's gonna ask you the right questions. Like, okay, well, are you sleeping well at night? Yeah, I'm fine. Well, then you don't have cancer. Things of that nature. So they can kind of get you going in the right direction. So absolutely, that's that's a great point. And I think it would be beneficial. I mean, you gave me an idea. We should start like a little master, like a private Facebook mastermind group for us Main Street businesses.
I love
And
it.
then we just post there. It'll be a private group, and we post questions to each other there. We try to help each other. If I have questions about setup, about things like that, about that Stefan can help me, and if I have like branding and experience, event questions and all that stuff, I'm sure you'll be able to gladly throw your answer out there. So I think that would be beneficial to our little community here. So I'm gonna definitely get that set up.
I love it. And that reminds me, helping each other is helping yourself too, and helping everybody. Like, we don't have to think of things as transactional. It is about the collective and helping to move a collective forward. And if you think you can do everything by yourself, good luck. I mean, good luck. I don't see that. I think we all need someone sometime.
What drives you to keep going? Like you're balancing a lot of different things, different
I
businesses.
am. I'm also. I also started painting during the pandemic, and I've sold a couple pieces, and I'm putting up a portfolio of art. So yes, I am juggling a few things.
Absolutely. So what drives you to keep going?
I don't want to ever feel like I have to depend on somebody else to take care of me. I don't ever want to feel like um, I can't make the life that I want to build for myself. I do want to feel like I have done something positive for myself, done something positive for other people, been authentic to the way that I am. Some of it is just who I am, and some of it's what I've studied and what I've worked hard to become. And I want to be able to enjoy the journey and, not just work, 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 retire, have nothing. Like, I want to have moments all along the way that I can work hard, enjoy something, get inspiration, have a new idea, put my energy into something, because that to me is like how life can be, right? Life can be impactful moments that are sort of building this whole entire fabric, this quilt of your life. The people that you meet, the places that you go, the experiences that you have, the things that you contribute, the help that you've given. It's multi-sensory. Like I really want, when my life comes to an end, to be able to just say, like, I did my best me and I gave my best me.
Wow. Absolutely. That's so impactful there. What would you say has been your biggest aha moment?
I'm going to bring my husband into this one. So a big aha moment was about me being a manager and not a good boss. That was a huge aha moment. But another aha moment was I spent many years single, and I was in my mid 40s, and I was on a 4-day business trip to Europe, and I got on a dating app and I met a guy, and turned out to be the Viking, and we got married 5 months after we met. And it was an aha moment for me because prior to meeting Stefan, I had a list, and my girlfriends would always make fun of me. I had a list of like all the check marks my future mate was going to need to have. Boom, 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 all these different things. And Stefan was not necessarily a perfect score in the check mark list. He was entirely different. He was giving me something that I needed, that maybe I didn't know that I needed. And that was a balance and a connection to my soul. And I bring this up as an aha moment because whether you look at it from an interpersonal relationship, or you look at it from a business, or you look at it about life goals, you can try and master plan something and you can have it really nice and neat on a sheet of paper. You will know when something feels right and feels good and matches what you really need. Sometimes what you think you need is not what you really need. And sometimes you get what you really need and it's a total gift, and it allows you to see things completely differently. And for me, that was meeting Stefan.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. It brings back memories because I met my wife online as well. I was 17. She was 18.
You met online when you were 17?
Yeah,
you must be a bit younger than me, Chris.
Yeah, that was that. It was on Yahoo Messenger. I'm not sure if anybody, our listeners, will still remember that. I was just, I was in college at that time, and I was just looking like, hey, I want to talk to somebody back home, right? So I just went online and I started like just chatting with people. Like at that time, you had like IRC, a lot of these chat rooms. That was the thing. There wasn't social media at that time. You were just chatting with no pictures, no profile. You would type there like, hey, like ASL, please, like age, sex, language. That's the thing. And then somebody's like, oh, I'm from here, and blah, blah, blah. And then you guys are talking. Then you go to a private room where you just start chatting with each other. Like direct messaging is what it is today. And then from there, we just kind of talked and got to know each other. And then I went home for a vacation and stuff like that. And we kind of hit it off. And then from there, that's where our relationship grew. And we were teenagers. And now, what am I? I was born in 1984. So I'm going to be 38, I believe, this year. I'm bad at math. If nobody knows, I am. But we're pretty much together for more than half of our lives today. And wow. How would I know that at that time that this woman that I'm going to build a family with 4 kids I would still be so in love with her like half of our life later. and I can't
That's
wait for the
amazing.
future. So, that definitely brings back. And at that time, I was young. I wasn't prepared to be in a
Yeah.
relationship. I was like, "You're crazy." Like my best friend was telling me, "Are you crazy? Like we're in college. Like just enjoy your life." I'm like, "But no, like this feels different." So like that's definitely, it's not what I wanted at the time, but it definitely is what I needed because it allowed me to slow down. And when we started a family together, like I mentioned earlier, it was exactly what I needed to put my life in perspective. And I think it was
Yeah.
that for you as well.
Yeah, it's that whole idea of trust the process, trust that there's a guide with you. You can control some things, you're not going to control everything. And this life can be a really beautiful thing if you kind of let go and let life.
Absolutely. Well, if you had a chance to talk to your 18-year-old self, Denise, what advice would you give her?
I would give the advice of savor the moment more, be in the present more. You don't need to completely architect everything about your future. You can be where you are now and enjoy your surroundings.
Absolutely. Well, as an entrepreneur now, what is your, not only an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur that's juggling so many different things? What would you say is your favorite or go-to productivity hack?
So this year it has been putting a weekly plan together. That has really helped. I think personally, the last couple of years, being able to um, the last couple of years felt like any plan was going to get sort of side railed. But being able to put just this week together, knowing that 1 week strings to two, strings to a month, strings to a year of a goal, but you're breaking it into like small chunks that you don't have to have the whole picture figured out all at once. That has been a productivity hack. I will also say I am a big proponent of when you need to have focused time to get rid of your alerts, whether it's email popping up or text popping up. We become very accustomed to immediate, answer immediate, do immediate, do 15 different things. And sometimes that's great when you want to be efficient, but when you want focused time that you're thinking, that you're building, that you're documenting, that you're having idea time, give yourself that space and turn off distractions.
That's great advice. If you had 3 wishes that were granted to you today, what would you wish for?
I would wish uh I would wish for health long term. I always wish for health. Health is first and foremost. If we don't have that, we can't really do anything else. I would wish for this one's a bit global. I would wish that everybody had access to water. I think that globally the water situation, there is enough water. I don't know why it's so difficult to get water to people. To me, that's just, I mean, it's crazy to me. Um, and I would also wish for people to have a sense of empathy.
Absolutely. I mean, bringing up water, I wanted to shout out to Scott Harrison. He's the CEO of Charity Water. He put out a book, I think it was called Thirst.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
he's doing some great things. I had a pleasure of hearing him speak at a marketing conference a couple years back, and it's fascinating. Our bodies are made up of majority water. The earth is made out of majority water. It's hard to fathom that water is such an issue for the rest of the world. If we just really cared about it enough that, hey, we have extra water here, why don't we just throw some in there because they need it to live. Like, what is
Yeah,
that? Like, I don't think it's gonna be as crazy. One thing that I've always shared with my wife that fascinates me: why is soda cheaper than water? When
exactly.
when the principal ingredient of soda is, I'm sure, water. I don't understand how can it be cheaper than water, which is I
It
just
is,
can't.
yeah, it's mind blowing in all the wrong ways, not the good ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the listeners out there, sorry about that. It's just like, it's one of those things that is just fascinates me. If you guys have an answer to that, please share it to us.
Yes.
Comment on the podcast, or, send us an email, or look us up on social media and let us know, why is soda cheaper than water? Can you recommend 3 books for our audience that has helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. A book that I would say found me, I didn't find it, it found me, is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It is an inspirational, motivational book. One thing I love is that there's only 4 agreements. So there's only 4 things you need to really remember, instead of 101. And that actually was transformational for me. I think another book that I recommend is Same Kind of Different as Me, and I'm drawing a blank on the author of it, but it's about 2 different men. One is homeless and one is an art dealer, and how they found each other. It's a true story. How they found each other and learned from each other, and it's really about equalization and the human story. And another book that I think I'm really into right now is the Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley. And it's this book where people found a journal, and the journal gets passed around, and people write their authentic stories in the journal, but then it just gets passed around. So you're reading all these strangers' authentic stories where they're anonymous to some degree because they're never going to see these people, and it just gets passed around, and sort of it's another human story. I really like the human stories.
Wow, those are fascinating books. I've never read or heard of any of those, so I will definitely look those up and add them to my Audible, so that I can learn from a little bit more from your perspective. I think it'll allow me to get to know you a little bit even more than what I've taken away from this podcast. What are you most looking forward now to your future as an entrepreneur?
I'm looking forward to the tipping point of when vision, purpose, intention really translates into a business that has a community, a business that has a following, a business that is involved in things. I think it does take a few years in most people's cases, unless you're a franchisee, unless it's an established brand, unless you're buying an existing business. If you're really starting from the ground up, it does take time. And I am looking most forward to seeing a time when there's sort of flow to the business where it feels as if there's a natural flow, that things are clicking in all the right ways. And I don't think there's any way to get there without getting there. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you can leapfrog from start to there. I think it's a process and it's not linear. And that's, I think, our goal for this year and next year is to find that flow in the business and be able to really feel it and use it as energy and build more solutions for people and have fun with it and have the luxury of being able to try things out and experiment, because that's always fun.
Definitely. Was there a question that you wish I'd asked you that I didn't get a chance to do so?
Well, there's a question that I actually want to ask you.
Please.
That is sort of you asking me is, what if you collect 100 stories from 100 entrepreneurs, what are you hoping is sort of a thread throughout?
Actually, I'm not hoping for a thread. What I'm hoping for realistically is that each of us have gone through different things in our lives, that all the questions that I'm asking, if any of our listeners listen to the podcast episode by episode, a lot of the questions that I ask is the format is pretty much the same. I just change it on context depending on the answers of my guests. But what I want to get is I want to see if there are differences in the things that we do to solve similar problems or solve similar situations? When we feel stuck, you might do things differently than others, but there is absolutely common threads, right? Sometimes like the superpowers, sometimes, there's only a few things that you can imagine that people do, teleportations, flying, and things of that nature. But when we talk about, like, for example, how do you get unstuck with problems? I hope that my hope is I get 100 different answers, because our listeners will then have a means to have a menu of when they're feeling stuck. These are some of the things that people did to get unstuck, right? So that's what I'm hoping for to get when I get to interview 100 of you, hopefully more than 100 in the future. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to get. I want to find commonalities where I can say, oh, these are some of the things that a lot of these entrepreneurs did or do on a day-to-day basis to be successful, but also find those uncommon threads that we all try to do to be able to just accomplish what we want as a future for our business and life and all of that stuff. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. And I will say one question that you didn't ask, that if you want to add it to your podcast, I'm going to let you steal it.
Please.
I'll give you two versions of it. What's your favorite taco recipe? Because I do think entrepreneurs in Southern California, we know about tacos, and always the debate of like who has the best burger, because I do think you might get consistency in one or two brands there.
True. I think if I've asked this, every time I go to a conference, you get to meet a lot of different people, right? And for East Coast, West Coast, when they're on the West Coast, they would sometimes say In-N-Out. When we're on the other side, they would say Smash Burger. When they're a little bit on the South, they would say Whataburger. And you know what? A burger that's taking the world or U.S. by storm is right now, and your husband has tried it. We've been trying to get our hands on it. Is Mr. Beast Burger.
My husband had it. He said it was good.
I know. My son has been. We try to order it, but it's always like out of stock, or we can't seem to find it. So hopefully soon we get to try it. But I will definitely add those questions. Those would be good icebreakers, especially in the beginning, to kind of set the mood and get perspective on the person and what their health lifestyle is all about.
Exactly.
In closing, what is one piece of advice that you can share with our listeners in their journey or while they try to become an entrepreneur?
The piece of advice that I tell myself pretty much every day is, it's a journey. You've said it. That's the advice. Don't forget, it's a journey. It's not a destination. Yes, you may have a destination as a goal, but if all you care about is the destination, you're not going to enjoy the journey. You're never going to be satisfied. And I do have to tell myself that. Like, I have to practice what I preach. It's a journey, and a journey is not necessarily a straight line. A journey can have ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and that's kind of cool, so embrace the journey.
Absolutely. Where can listeners learn more about you and your business?
Great. So VikingSpawn Repair, the computer repair shop, we do custom computers, and we also do home and small business IT tech setups. We don't do software support. We are at VikingSpawn.com. I actually have my own personal website for experience design, and that's DeniseCannon.com. There happens to be a free e-booklet on my point of view on designing experiences available for download there. And you can see me at the chamber and probably out in Chino Hills somewhere.
Most definitely. Well, thank you so much, Denise, for giving me and our listeners this opportunity to pick your brain and listen to your story. I encourage and invite our listeners to please connect with Denise and Stefan from VikingSpawn Gaming and Computer Repair. Also, please do share, subscribe, leave a rating and review. I would very much appreciate your honest feedback, which helps me continually provide impactful content that I hope you all will find valuable. And remember, every day that you face adversity, think of it as an opportunity to find the gold inside you. Until next time, have a success-filled day, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Behind Main Street podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Remember to visit www.behindmainstreet.com.